Welcome students in our today's online session. In our today's online session, we are going to talk about the essay on the pleasures of no longer being very young by G.K. Chesterton. So before moving ahead in the text, let's have a brief introduction of our today's essays. So G.K. Chesterton, whose full name is Gilbert Keith Chesterton, who was an English poet, philosopher, dramatist, essayist, journalist, orator, literary and art critic, born in a middle-class family in Kingston, London. He educated at St. Paul's School, where he started his career as a reviewer of art books. He wrote around 80 books, several hundred poems, and about 200 short stories, 400,000 essays, and several plays. If we talk about some of his famous essays or writings, which include Tremendous Trifles, A Shilling for My Thoughts, and All Things Considered. So he was very proficient with the literary and social criticism, history, politics, economics, philosophy, and theology. His style is very witty, consistent, and extremely paradoxical, as he has used a lot of paradox in his writings, and that's why he is often referred to as the Prince of Paradox, because his essays that contain elements of paradox, parable, and allegory used to illustrate certain spiritual truths. So this is about our author, and our today's essay entitled as On the Pleasures of No Longer Being Very Young. It actually here Chesterton analyzes the nature of the advantages of old age, and he talks about, or he actually highlights various aspects of growing old, or when people proceeds in his later age, enriching his life with a lot of experiences, and with a lot of adventures in his life, and all these aspects he has actually talked about with the help of paradox, allusions, and so many real life illustrations of his actual real life. So let's move ahead in our text. So one more thing which I want to clear here, that this essay on the pleasures of no longer being very young is actually has been taken from his collection All Is Grist, which was written in 1931, and since the essay was written during the great economic depression in the 1930s, so that uh, impact is also we can see in the written words in this essay. So this essay begins here with the line, I am reading for you, there are advantages in the advance through middle age into later life which are very seldom stated in a sensible way. So actually Chesterton here points out that there are so many advantages of old age which are actually discussed in very little in meaningful ways, and generally they are stated in a sentimental way, in a general suggestion that all old men are equipped with beautiful snowy beards like Father Christmas and rejoice in unfathomable wisdom like Nature. So here Chesterton is making further elaboration that these are all the wrong beliefs and general supposition about old age that have been stated by people in different ways, that all old men are equipped with they are actually they are so like the snowy beards, people like Father Christmas here. That old men who look like Father uh, Santa Claus or Father Christmas, who have white beards and who have happy look, and likewise they are also like Nestor. So Nestor is actually is a reference for the wise king of Pylos in Greek mythology. So people used to describe old men in this meaningless way, that in this insensible way, that they are just like the Father Christmas and Easter. So here Chesterton is going to destruct those old wrong beliefs or general suppositions. All this has caused the young people to be skeptical about the real advantages of the old people, and the true statement of those advantages sounds like a paradox. So here Chesterton is pointing out that like this way, all these general assumptions actually made the old young people to be more skeptical, or uh, about about the real advantages of the old people. Actually, what are the real advantages old people have, and how and in true sense, how those advantages uh, uh, can be benefited in older age by an old man. But those wrong judgments or wrong positions or wrong beliefs actually made the young people as leading or having contradictory views in their mind. So just like a paradox, I would not say that old men grew wise, for men never grow wise, and many old men retain a very attractive childishness and cheerful innocence. So here Chesterton is making out his argument that he is not going to say that all old men are wise people. They can never be because men never uh, can be wise, can be growing wise, and actually on the contrary, he considers that old men always retain very attractive childishness in them. They have the childishness in their nature, and they uh, uh, are they have cheerful innocence, and elderly people are often much more romantic than younger people, and sometimes even more adventurous, having begun to realize how many things they do not know. So here Chesterton is actually making out some positive aspects of being older, or being old men, that elderly people or old people, they are more romantic in comparison to the younger people, because sometimes even they are more adventurous. And why why and when uh, do they start to believe in this concept, that due to it is because due to the fact that they begin to cherish these uh, concept, these things, or these uh, understanding in their life, due to their growing age and due to their real life experiences, that they start to understand that being an old man or being a growing or an elderly person is much more is much more uh, advantage, or we can say it's much more super stage, or it can be which they earlier don't they were not, they don't used to be like this. It is a true proverb, no doubt, which says there is no fool like an old fool. So further, for strengthening his argument, Chesterton is actually giving here an example of proverbs like old proverbs and maxims which are considered, which used to consider as outdated or meaningless. He is saying that when the proverb like the saying like this, there is no fool like an old fool. So he's saying that this is actually when this is sad for the old people, that that there is no fool like an old person. Why? Because they the foolish behavior of old people, they cannot be excused, because they have ample time in their life. They had ample opportunities, or they have ample amount of experiences of their life, that they must be much more mature. So perhaps there is no fool who is half so happy in his own foolish paradise. So but however, this may be, it is true that the advantages of maturity are not those which are generally urged even in praise of it, and when they are truly urged, they sound like an almost comic contradiction. So Chesterton is making this point, that it is a true fact that all the advantages of older age are not which are generally spoken in that they spoken in general way, because they they sometimes, because they sounds like sound like some comic remarks or contradictory remarks, as this is how they used to believe these things in their younger days of life, in their in their youth, when they were in their prime, in their full prime, or so they used to remark on these certain old ways of life, or the way, when the way of life which older people or old age people used to deal, used to have. So they all are commented in derogatory terms, when, or in comic way, that younger people used to treat them in derogatory way, that they didn't like their ways of life. But all these things, the writer actually was only able to understand when he himself experienced those things in his older days, in his old age. Okay, so students, with this point, with this paragraph, I will wrap up this lecture, and we will continue the essay in our subsequent lecture. So I hope, I think this is enough for today. Thank you, students.